he is saying, I read that after what Mali has accused French troops of massacres, they have embraced Russian help in its fight with Islamist group. Is this a front against NATO? Yeah, I mean, I heard that as well, but I also heard that a lot of people there themselves don't like this. There's a whole bunch of radio stations and over there also that is doing Russian propaganda, right? And they're denying doing so. They're saying like no. I mean, so for example, there's a lot of Russia's influence in Africa is a lot more intense than French ones, right? So they're very the proxies that Russia uses in France, they are much less concerned. As okay, I'm not endorsing the history of France in Africa. Okay, I know there has been a very dark history, but based on today, based on the way they act today, their standards are a lot higher than how Russians are behaving in Africa right now. Okay, and Russians in Africa, the way they are operating, it's in the interest of other people who are also not that worried about human rights issues, right? So, and also, they might support certain media to act on their behalf. And there's not much oversight over to see what radio station or what TV station is getting support from where. So you just have to go by the words that they are like working independently. But the narratives is so pro-Russia that it's hard to believe that, right? So what's the question? Mali has accused French troops of massacres. They have embraced Russian. Yeah, but Russian troops. I don't know which massacre are you referring to, because are you talking about earlier, like the history of French involvement in over there, because that has been very bad. Or are you talking about something more recent? Okay, because the Russian proxies are a lot worse, and the French media like France 24 and over there, it's a lot more fair. It's a lot more balanced, and I think the Russian ones do not cover that. Oh, okay. Here's another thing that I think a lot of people. But when you talk about those the African countries where France and Russia are competing with each other, right? So you have to consider the people and the people in charge. Okay, the people, it is within their best interest to rely more on France than Russia. Okay, but a lot of people over there are also brainwashed to back tyrants or dictators or people who don't care about human rights records or people who have tyrannical ambitions. Okay, because what they don't like about France's influence over there is that France does cover a whole bunch of negative things that happens over there, and also a lot of negative things that they might be responsible for, right? So you might look at like France being more critical of their activities, and we might think like that, well, that's a good thing, but they see it as foreign media middling where they shouldn't be middling, and also only highlighting the negative. They're not highlighting any good news that is happening around that region. They're only highlighting the bad stuff. Okay, but then they look at Russian media, and Russian media, knowing that they need the support of people in charge, they're also highlighting a whole bunch of things that are wholesome that is happening over there, right? So not knowing the motivation behind the people behind the people who are doing this, because they're trying to exert soft power in the region, right? At the face of it, that looks a lot better, right? Like, oh, these French people who always were here and meddling in things that they shouldn't be meddling in, they're always telling us how horrible this is. How the world sees Africa. They only see the negative. They always report on bad stuff that is happening here, but we also have good stuff that is happening here. And look at the only people who are recognizing that, are the Russian media. So why shouldn't we welcome them more here? And all, but but also the tyrants are like the people who are not the tyrants, the people who are in charge and want to be less concerned with human rights or corruption. They're like, the Russian, if we get our backing, if we get our support from forces backed by Russia, it's going to be a lot easier for us to do what we want to do. So that's might be another reason why they consider that a better alternative. D is saying it seems like this anti-imperialist narrative is spreading to Russians' benefit. Yeah, I mean, Russia was always like, Putin was always interested in that. Like, this goes as far as back as Putin being concerned about Western powers being involved in Libya, and then they're being so frustrated with that to doing something as crazy as supporting Assad. You know what I mean? Even though it doesn't seem like it had much of an interest. So I think the way Putin is looking at the world is not just like Russia versus NATO. I think the way Putin is looking at the world is the forces of liberalism versus all things wholesome or conservative as they see it. You know what I mean? So for Putin, this is a global battle against darkness. This is why he wanted, and this darkness, they call it, some people call it imperialism, but some people call it like, a liberal world order, right? And I think he wants to fight it everywhere because he thinks that the whole world is being lost, and he thinks like Russia is the main force that is standing up to it. There's an unnatural liberal order that is taking over the world, and Russia is the main force that is standing up to it. That, if you think about it that way, that's the only way you could explain, like, Russia standing up for Assad, because it's just like it's standing up to these powers for the sake of standing up to these powers so they don't control everything everywhere. Beyond, it's not just about Russia, it's about saving the world. That's why, by the way, Putin says, he had a line. What was his line? He said that, what good is the world if there's no Russia? Like, what's the point of having a world if Russia is not a power within that world? Which is a very dangerous way to think about it, because technically, if it's not worth it, then you could nuke the whole thing. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's very interesting because Russia is having it's very interesting that we're thinking about these Western countries with imperialism as imperialists, and the forces that are standing up to it are doing actual imperialism. Like, Russia is having imperial expansion goals, but some people see it as standing up to imperialism, but they're not doing imperialism. You're doing imperialism. But I don't think Putin himself sees that as, I don't think Putin himself sees, like, this is how other people look at it. I don't think Putin himself sees it as standing up to imperialism. I think Putin himself doesn't have an issue with imperialism. He would think a perfect world would be a world where the United States is still a major power, but there's another major power that is competing with it, and they're both doing imperialism together, right? I think I think he thinks things are out of balance when there's one force but there's another force to compete with it or to stand up next to it, and that he thinks the fact that there's only one major power is putting things out of balance, and that's why things are becoming so unnatural to the point where families are even being threatened and stuff. Like, I don't think, like, based on Putin's philosophy, I think he wouldn't even want Russia to be the only superpower. I think he thinks that if you have only one superpower, that's how things become this unnatural, right? Maybe he doesn't even think like liberalism wouldn't be that much of an issue if you had like a conservative force in the world that was, competing with it. Yeah, I think that might be his philosophy, but I don't know. If you'd like to send me your questions for me to answer during our Q&As, become a patron. If you would like to have a discussion with me live on air at the end of the Q&As, become a YouTube member. Link to both is in the description. Thank you for your support.